Welcome to the September edition of the Tempo Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot. The mini expansion for Roar of the Godworm has been released, and it has sailed smoothly without the need for a balance patch a week into the expansion. While a host of powerful new cards have been added in the mini expansion, the biggest benefactors are no doubt Mono Blood and Evo Rally Sword, with Waltz and Badb Catha being great additions to the archetypes. The rest of the additions, such as the new Masamune, Carbuncle, and Mordecai, are not terrible cards by any means. They simply do not fit well into existing meta decks at the moment, but they may offer a sneak peek at what may be in store for players in the upcoming expansion with the rotation of Renascent Chronicles. After all, with Deus Ex Machina making a return via Cyclical Fate, it is only a matter of time before Artifact Portal makes a return. Before we explore the meta in detail, remember to like and subscribe to our Tempo Strategy YouTube channel for the latest decks and strategy content. Be sure to check out the Shadowverse section at TempoStorm.com for the full meta snapshot, as well as other Shadowverse content. Unsurprisingly, Flaming Glass Shadow remain at the top of Tier 1. Just like its rank in the meta snapshot, the composition of the deck has not changed much outside of the ratio of cards, as the increased popularity of decks such as Evo Rally Sword and Resonance Puppet Portal has made 3 copies of Roulenye a more common choice, especially in formats with 3 or more decks. Matchup-wise, the deck has similar matchups as it did before the mini expansion, with positive or even matchups against all the other Tier 1 decks except Mono Blood, though it's a tad weaker against decks that have received support in the mini expansion. Resonance Puppet Portal, an aggressive burn-based mid-range deck, saw a huge surge of popularity in the past few weeks, although that popularity has died down a bit recently. The deck has a very impressive matchup spread with even or positive matchups against all the Tier 1 and 2 decks, with the exception of Mono Blood. The main drawback is that the deck also possesses a deceptively high skill ceiling and skill floor, which could be a factor in its lack of representation. Evo Rally Sword's addition of Badb Catha with the mini expansion essentially improved its matchups across the board. She is a natural inclusion for the deck, providing drawing, healing, and buffing abilities that are made even stronger once 3 or more evolution points have been spent. The straightforwardness of the deck, along with the boost from Badb Catha, allows the deck to remain competitive among its peers that have not received anything from the mini expansion. Dirt Rune did not receive any updates for the mini expansion. With the recent popularity of board-based decks like Rally Sword and Puppet Portal, most lists are back to 1 to 2 Pursuer Golems to reset the board state and potentially lethal through a lot of wards. Dirt Rune's matchups are mostly the same as last month's. Things are pretty even across the board, with slightly favored matchups against the 2 Portalcraft decks and Handless Blood as usual. Mono Blood is due to rotate, but like the Bloodcraft Vengeance mechanic, it's not going out without its last hurrah. Mono Blood is able to finally reach Tier 1 in this month's meta snapshot thanks to the addition of Waltz. The deck is now way more flexible and consistent, and packs enough punch to have successes in the recent Godworm Gauntlet. The deck has a great matchup against Flaming Glass Shadow, one of the most popular decks on ladder, and is also favorable against Resonance Puppet Portal, though it does have a very unfavored matchup against Evo Rally Sword. Be sure to check out Esia's guide on the deck if you want to follow his successes in the Gauntlet event. Handless Blood is a great pick for laddering. While the deck is almost an auto-concede against the 2 Portalcraft representatives, it generally has a good enough matchup spread for laddering. It boasts a cheap crafting cost, sports very fast games, and dodges rotation entirely in the next expansion. Besides Handless Blood, the Tier 1 Evo Rally Sword is also a great pick for laddering. It is a relatively linear deck also, with fast games in general. For those who wish to challenge themselves to something new, Resonance Puppet Portal is a great laddering pick with its great matchup spread. Be sure to check out Noir's guide on Handless Blood and Hashiro's guide on Evo Rally Sword to ensure your successes on ladder. Overall, the mini expansion moved the game to a better place. Most meta decks have more or less remained the same composition-wise, making only minor adjustments to deal with popularity shifts among its competitors. With 5 decks representing different classes in Tier 1, the conclusion of the Roar of the Godworm expansion has ended up on a high note in terms of class diversity, reminiscent of the Edge of Paradise meta. The decks are generally pretty well balanced, and most of the top decks do require a degree of mastery to pilot. There is still a lot of variance between high rolls and subpar draws, as well as a power gap between going first and second. Dragon and Forest, while they have received decent additions in the mini expansion, are still really weak and not well represented. For the remainder of the expansion, we expect Flame and Glass's popularity to remain. Dirt Rune may lose a bit of traction, and Resonance Puppet Portal may lose its flavor of the month appeal for some players, while skilled players will still see success with it for reasons similar to Spell Boost Rune. Mono Blood, given its power boost, is due for a tournament win at some point. The Renascent Chronicles expansion is due to rotate with the release of the next expansion. This includes all of the playable Shadowverse leaders and Generation 2 of the story character playable cards. Those are all well-designed cards that have defined the meta during various periods, a handful of which are still in use in today's meta. While it's high time for another story-related expansion, and we are likely to see the characters make a reappearance sometime in the future, the rotation of Renascent Chronicles is bound to have a much bigger impact on the meta than some others have had. We will know later this month whether or not Shadowcraft will finally be knocked down from the top of the tier list. Looking forward, the Meta Snapshot team would like to see Cygames take a good look at the power gap between going first and going second. Cards that offer the downsides of going second without needing to be drawn by a specific turn or being awful to have going first would be great. Having a collection of useful cards would be preferred over a few extremely powerful cards. Of course, Dragon and Forest, and to some extent Havencraft as well, can use a boost to help them put up a representation on the radar, instead of being a bottom tier class all expansion long. For a better understanding of the meta, be sure to check out the Shadowverse section of our website regularly for guides written by our professional players. See you all in next month's edition of the Tempo Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot.